there, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jenny and I'm partway through doing a series about back to basics where I look at some of the principles of art and look at some of the basic techniques of scrapbooking and look at some of the other, I don't know, most not quite beginner tips, but yeah, and just see how we can apply them. I will be doing some practical stuff. Not quite today, but, well, today we're going to have a little look at colours. First little look at colours. Maybe I'll pop something behind that so I don't have to keep holding it up. There we go. This is the colour wheel, the artist's colour wheel. Note that for light projection, the primary colours are different. So for the visual, the art colour wheel, primary colours are yellow and red and blue, but for light projection it's green rather than blue. They're the other way around. And light projection is essentially what CMYK, which is what you print in, comes from. If you've ever wondered why you have RGB or hex values on your website and they don't look quite the same when you print something out, it's because it needs to be in CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and then the K stands for black, because it could be confusing having a B there because that could be seen as being blue. So what does the C stand for then? Okay, so what we're talking about today is that's your basic colour wheel. There are primary colours, which are those, the red and the blue and the yellow. And you see how they're evenly spaced on the colour wheel. And then directly in between them, you've got the secondary colours. And in between those, you've got tertiary colours. Stampin' Up has its very own, this is catalogue up till the end of this month, so I can do this, flip it through, flip open and stuff. Stampin' Up has one of these, showing you where all of its colours are on the wheel as well. So let's line it up with the wheel here. Oh dear, it's flipped. Whoops, how do I cope? It's okay. Don't panic, we're all right. Because we can have the green here and then we can mirror image and have the blue and the purple round past red violet into red and then round to oranges and yellowy oranges and then over to yellows and then the yellowy greens round to the greens and the greeny blues and back round to the blues again. Okay, So one of the ways that you can divide up the colour world is into warm colours and cool colours. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. There are all sorts of different ways of dividing them up. Stampin' Up, for example, divides them up and has little sets of InColors. And then it has the basics colours and then separates the others into subtles or pastels, brights, regals, which are also known as shades in other places, and then the neutrals, some of which are the basics, and some of which are similar to the basics, made from the basics, and some of which are just kind of good background colours. So Mossy Meadow is a good neutral if you're doing something with leaves or with flowers, and Early Espresso, Pecan Pie, and so on. So that's one of the reasons why I love having a physical catalogue, because then I can open it up and look at what the exact colours are. But as I said, we're going to look at warm and cool colours, cold colours, warm colours. As it says on this lovely poster that I got years and years ago. It says that it's from Wisdom Learning. No idea. I have no idea where I picked that up, but I picked it up and it's brilliant. It's been sitting on my wall, and my children do sometimes look at it and say, oh, I could use that combination. And that's why it still sits on my wall. So you can have warm and cool colours, and mostly when we think of warm colours, we think of things like fiery colours, and then cool colours, things like watercolours. But you can also get them in, for example, browns. So this is the light side of early espresso, which is quite a warm brown. But if I turn it over and we have the dark side of early espresso, try with that one off. I've got natural light behind me, so maybe that will work. Don't know. It's quite a lot bluer. If you've got a piece of early espresso two-tone cardstock with you, go and have a proper look at it, because, and you'll see what I mean, that they look, when you have them on a warm colour and on a cool colour, they look like the same brown, which is excellent. But then if I swap them over, that looks a lot darker. I don't know whether it's showing up on the screen, but it's certainly showing up in person. And then this, the warm tone, the lighter side, looks a lot lighter when you have it against a cool tone. But I don't know if that's showed up. But there are other times when Stampin' Up have used warm colours and cool colours. The Extraordinary Flora, I got the washi tape. I'm currently on my second roll. I have a third roll that I picked up when it was on Last Chance. I don't know if it's still available, but I snapped it up as soon as it moved to Last Chance because I have already used a whole roll and I'm halfway through the second one. I love it. It's got warm tone combinations. I particularly love it because I don't have to do a lot of work to line up the die to cut them all out. As I've mentioned a few times, I have difficulty with my left shoulder, left arm, post-injury, and I find it really difficult to line up lots of little dies like you get with this. Much easier to line up one die for the whole lot. So that's one of the reasons why I particularly love this one. But it's got warm colours, warm tones mostly on one, and cool tones on the other. So can you see how some of these are cooler, much bluer, and most of these are much yellower, much warmer. That's another way of dividing up colours. You may have seen I have a bit of paper with it here. Give me half a moment. I left it on the other side of the room. Of course I did. There we go. Right. It's my little notes for me talking today. Or at least for me starting to talk about colours and shades and things. You can also have colours divided up into the RBL, and that sort of looks at the entire colour spectrum, all the things that we can see with our eyes, and puts them in this effectively cube. So in one direction you've got red, green. Red is more striking than green, so red is the first one that's listed. Red, green. BL. Blue versus yellow. Blue tends to catch your eye and hold your attention more than yellow does, which is interesting given that we have yellow high-vis jackets more frequently than we have blue ones. There we are. And L stands for light, because it's the light versus dark scale. So you have one of these in each of these directions, and you can tell where it is, where the colour is. It's mostly useful if you're trying to work out how far apart two colours are. It's not really something that I pay attention to most of the time. It's not really something that anyone pays attention to, really, outside of the design world, but I just wanted to throw that out there in case you come across an RBL value. What on earth is that? Yeah, it's that. So again, going back to cool and warm, those ones are cool. Can you see that they're bluer in tone? There we go. And these ones are warmer in tone. I wonder, with that light change, whether you'll be able to see the difference. Maybe if I just use one of each. And on a white background, maybe. Yeah, you can. So this is the two-tone cardstock early espresso. That's the light side, that's the dark side. And bring it down here next to the blue. See that this one has more blue in it. And then take it over here. You see that this one has more warm tones, more yellows and oranges in it. And then if I put them like that, see how they look as though they're the same shade, the same colour, relative to the colours around them. And I think that's a really clever thing that Stampin' Up have done with their two-tone cardstock. They've made it so that the light side will look the same as the dark side does, but with other colours. So if we look at both of them down here, the light side looks very much lighter. And if we look at them up here, the dark side looks very much darker. Admittedly, I can't see what my camera's doing there because it's underneath the thingy that holds it. So I'm just going to trust that my camera is doing the right thing and is showing you what I wanted to show you. So, anyway. So I'm going to pop that over to one side. Move all of those over to one side because this is about scrapbooking and I want to show you how you can use warm and cool to get an effect. So this is a layout that I've made for when we went to see this. Absolutely brilliant. If you ever get the chance to see this, I really hope that the people who do your version of it are as good as the people that did the version that I saw. Because it was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I was going to do a little bit of blue around the edge of this one, because you'll notice that all of the colours that are in here are warm. There are reds, oranges, yellows, warm browns, even the cream around the edge is warm. But I've chosen to use blue. And I did that specifically because of some of the elements that are in the play. It's a comedy, but it's also a murder mystery, whodunit type thing. And yeah, it says a rollicking comedy thriller. I don't think they could have described that better. So I wanted it to have warm and cool, and wanted it to have gold in, again, because of elements that are in there. I have yet got to work out how I'm going to make my photos work on this, which could be challenging. My thinking is that, and then having photos maybe in a waterfall here. I picked up a few photos. One of my children's godmother took us to the theatre for one of them's birthday this year, and this was what we saw. It was absolutely brilliant. I would have loved to go back for the entire of the rest of the run every single evening. It was that good. But talking about warm and cool colours today, we're not talking about the theatre. So this is blue. This blue here is quite a lot warmer than this blue here. I shall show you that by showing you the two different blues together. See this one, yeah, one of them is warmer and one of them is cooler. Let's go that way around. And then you can see the difference, see the colours together. Two different shades. And to go with the blue, which is traditionally a cool colour, I've used this lovely warm cream colour. But it's almost deceptively warm because it's still a very neutral colour in the background. And against these, so against the white it looks really warm, but against the reds of this, of the leaflet, the flyer I guess, it looks very neutral. So that's how I've used warms and cools and neutrals and brights and different colours to bring things out in this particular layout. I'll show you that when I've finished it. It won't be just yet, but when I've finished it I'll show it to you. This. When you look at it, you see greens and blues. And I've done that intentionally. Although this is a relatively warm this is relatively warm because it's all quite greeny blue rather than very blue. I don't know whether you picked up, I certainly did when I saw them and started seeing them against other shades of blue that we have. So this is Night of Navy, which is a very blue. If you look at, this is Cloud Cover, and stamped on it is Secret Sea. They're very green in tone. So they go very well with things like this Pretty Peacock. And I will again come back to this one another time to pick up on that again. But what I wanted to say was I've then used warm colours, these little bunnies, and this isn't quite the same shade, but it will go about there. It's like a continuation of the warm colours going off to the edge. There we go. Tuck it back in up there. So I've used warm and cool on this, but I've made it a relatively warm layout compared to what it would have been if I'd done it in these sorts of blues rather than these blues. And then this layout, if you were wondering why I had that piece of Hearth and Home hanging around, this is why. So again, I've used green, in this case a very bluish green. These are both very blue greens. If you look at it against warm, it could look warm, but it can also look very, very blue. And that's the effect that I've gone for here. And then I've used flowers that are all warm tones, or warm colours. Although there is, again, a little element of cool in there. And this one is a slightly cooler colour. So I've used warm and cool, and I've used warm toned across here. If you look, the colour in the background is basic beige, or possibly very vanilla actually, rather than white. and so I used that on purpose. I'm actually going to put a little tiny sliver of gold top and bottom of here. So I haven't quite finished this one, but I wanted to make sure that I had worked out how I wanted my photos before I put the gold on, because there's no point in putting a little strip of gold across the top if I'm not going to be able to see it. Efficiency of use of my materials, you know, quite aside from anything else. I don't have very much gold. This has green in it, but the whole thing is very, very warm toned. You've got these lovely pinks. Yeah. Let's maybe knock it down a few more. There we go. Yeah. You've got these lovely pinks, reds and purples. And then this green is a very yellowy green, if you look. And then you've got little red ones and orange. And even though the background here is quite cool, I don't know whether you can see, I've popped a second copy of this up on top of the first copy, just to give it a little element of being something slightly different and standing out from the little bar across the bottom, because it was fun. But in order to bring it back down to earth, I've used the dark side of Early Espresso, which, if you remember, when we looked at it on here, the dark side looks so much darker than the light side, and it looks like a shadow. It does work on that one, excellent. It looks like natural shadow without being black, which is perfect, because as an artist, if I can avoid using black, I do, because then that means that I can always go darker. So if I wanted to make something look really, really dark on here, I could then use true black rather than just the dark brown, and it would stand out even more. But yeah, I've just picked it out using this cool dark brown, which allows everything to be grounded. The only thing that I haven't picked out in that dark brown are these pink flowers. And if you look, they almost seem to blur at the edges, because your brain sees the definition around those, around everything else. This paper almost fades out. It's fun what effects you can make your eyes do just by adding definition or adding a bit of a different colour, things like that. So yeah, I don't know. The sun keeps going in and coming out, and it's making it kind of difficult to film. I am not complaining about the sun. I love it. It's lovely to have so much sunshine at the moment, but yes, it does make it interesting to work out what level of lighting to do. So that's just an overview of how you can use warm and cool colours to make your layouts look even better. Till the next time, bye for now.